like to call the subcommittee on education, on higher education, to order. Please call the roll.
Senator Pillion.
Here.
Senator Hashmi. Senator Cosgrove.
Thrilled to be here.
Senator Peterson.
EC.
Senator Locke.
Present.
You have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. We'd like to go ahead and get started. Looks like we only have one patron here, so I guess it's you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Well, Madam Chair, I know you've seen a version of this bill before, so I'll just talk about the substantive differences from what it was in the Senate versus how it came out of the House. I guess the biggest one is we don't have anything in here about DEI. All this does is it says the number of executive staff members, including all administrative staff, directly reporting to the chief executive officer of such institution, employed by such institution, or any educational foundation associated with such institution, and the salary and compensation of each such executive staff member. And then we also changed the way that we ask for the lobbying services. Instead of for individuals, we're now saying the total value of any contract with any outside individual or entity to provide lobbying services for such institution. I believe those were the major substantive changes from Senator Reeves' version of the bill. I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee has.
Any questions to Delegate Freitas on House Bill 1800?
So why don't you, can you give us kind of the background behind this? I think that was one of the
Sure. I think
questions we had last time.
The primary concern is obviously the state invests a lot of money in our institutions of higher education, and a lot of the money that is available to these institutions comes from foundation spending. And I think part of the concern is especially now with the economy being what it is, with the amount of money that we've invested, before there's any more discussion of either raising tuition or more of a taxpayer investment, we want to see how institutions are spending that money to include some of the money that's coming from the foundations as well. And so I think having this information and then having it come to us as part of the report that typically goes to both the House and the Senate will put us in a better position to understand what sort of state contributions might be necessary in the future.
Okay, is Madam Chair, if I might ask
Go
a
ahead,
question.
Senator.
Is this information already subject to FOIA, or is it exempted from FOIA right now, and that's the point of the bill?
Some of it is, I believe that there are certain elements, especially with some of the funding on the executive staff members that are not necessarily covered by FOIA or are not part of the regular report that already comes to the General Assembly. And so I don't think it's, we're not adding a great deal more with respect to what's available for FOIA, but we are specifying what we expect to see in our own reports. And then I'll leave it to council if I got any of that wrong with respect to FOIA ability.
I don't see anything changing FOIA, is that correct?
Madam Chair, as far as we know, that is all correct.
Okay.
Other questions, Senator Peters?
Prior to any, well, I guess my question would be, so this is already subject to FOIA. What, now you're going to put it on the website? Is that the idea?
Madam Chair, Senator Peterson, yes. So two things. One, we're ensuring that it's a part of the report that already comes to us, so it's not as if we're having to individually FOIA things outside of whatever is part of that report. And the other part is that it would be posted on their individual websites, because a part of this too is making sure that we have informed consumers, and we think this is information those consumers would like to have.
Okay, further question, Madam Chair?
Senator Peterson.
I'm focused in on this part where it talks about the contract with the chief executive officer of the institution, which I would take to mean the president of the university. The board shall hold a public meeting for written, virtual, and in-person public comment at least 120 days prior to any such meeting, at which we'll vote to enter into or renew such contract. And I guess my question is, I mean, when you're trying to recruit these university presidents, and I was somewhat involved with George Mason, 120 days, I mean, these things tend to move pretty quickly, especially when you're in a competitive environment. Where does 120 days come from?
Madam Chair, Senator Peterson, I think part of that comes from the fact that we do have several universities that have actually renewed contracts long before those contracts have actually expired. And so I think it's just about giving them plenty of time. However, if there was concern with respect to the number of days and we wanted to reduce that to a number that the committee thought was more appropriate, I'd certainly consider that a friendly amendment.
Other questions?
That's what I have for now.
Okay. Is there anything in your legislation that that's not already been being done by institutions of higher education?
Madam Chair, two things. One, I'm not sure, well, I know they're not able to put it on their individual websites necessarily, or at least they're not required to. I think the other component is the 120 days prior with respect to the open meetings, as well as making sure that they provide an opportunity for written, virtual, and in-person public comment. I don't think that's something that's required, nor do I think that every institution is doing it. And then I would say the other component is they're not adding some of this information into the report that's already due to the House. I think I got that.
Okay. Is there anyone here in support of House Bill 1800?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, Megan Ryan with the Coalition for Open Government. We've long been supporters of more transparency of the foundations, and that is, I think, one of the things that is not subject to FOIA. If you're working for the foundation, you're not subject to FOIA. The foundation itself is not subject to FOIA. So those are not necessarily going to be open at present. As far as the rest of the information being accessible through FOIA, since the last meeting, I went to the websites of each of the universities and looked for the required link that says file a FOIA request. It's supposed to be on the home page. Half of them did not have it. Half of them didn't even have it until you did a search for it and then found it, and then the information there was often incomplete. So maybe it is subject to FOIA, but good luck.
What, if I can ask a chair,
Senator Peterson.
so is this about universities or is this about foundations? Because I'm scrolling through the legislation. I thought it was about universities, but are you saying it's only about foundations?
Now, my understanding from one of the first paragraph, I'm sorry for looking over your shoulder here, but
Right,
it says compensation of, it's such institution or any educational foundation associated with such institution. So the salary and such information of the university is subject to public disclosure under FOIA, but under the foundations, as reinforced by the Transparent GMU Supreme Court case of a couple of years ago, the foundation records are not subject to FOIA.
So there's, Madam Chair, so there's already.
Senator Pillion.
There's already a legal case that says those aren't subject, correct?
Right, well, they never were. There was, I remember when this was worked out about 15 or 20 years ago, there was, an understanding that foundations, they're not principally or wholly supported by public funds, so they don't meet the definition of a public body under FOIA. And so in the Transparent GMU case, students went after some records related to someone who was reporting between both. So he was working for the president of someone in the administration as well as to the foundation. Tried to go after those, and they said these are two independent entities. You can get it from the university, you can't get it from the foundation.
And Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes.
I would also say with respect to the foundations, if you look at lines 26 through 41, we already have certain reporting requirements from foundations. This is essentially adding to those requirements.
Okay.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Stacey Gordon with Partners for College Affordability and Public Trust, and we strongly support the bill. Not only does this bill increase financial transparency regarding the university spending and financial expenditures of the foundations, which this committee has been supportive of in the past, and we appreciate. And we think it's really important that one of the most important provisions of this bill is it requires live streaming of board meetings. And I think this is important for students who may not be on campus, and necessarily parents who may not be on campus, so they're able to watch when these decisions are being made in live time and view the reports. And I know it's something that our organization has done a report on in the past. If you guys were interested in their current practices when it relates to board meetings, I do bring that information. But again, we support the bill, and we hope you guys do too. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let me ask her a question. So
Senator Pillion.
You're from the college affordability?
A nonprofit organization.
Right. So lines 110 through 119, is that something you're supportive of as well?
Of the whole bill.
Okay.
In whole.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Senator Cosgrove.
Nick, let me ask you a question. I'm pretty much in support of your bill, but I do have one concern. That live streaming, any of the board meetings, may have a chilling effect on people willing to serve in that capacity that, are doing so now, or may in the future. Have you thought about that?
Madam Chair, we have, I think, again, I think we always kind of run into this problem with respect to trying to achieve more transparency while at the same time understanding that, there's still the possibility, I think, for these organizations to be able to go into I guess for lack of a better term, closed session if there were certain things that they had to discuss that might be private in nature. But I think when we look at most of what's going on within these board meetings, we would certainly want there to be some level of transparency.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Are there those here in opposition to House Bill 1800? Okay, we have House Bill 1800 before us.
I would move to report the bill.
I'll second that.
Is removed and seconded that House Bill 1800 be recommended for reporting. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, I'm a no, and Senator Peterson is a no. I suggest you show up.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Delegate O'Quinn?
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
before he starts, I just have to tell you a little story that happened the other night. Senator Peterson and I were asked to entertain the Capitol Hill, press dinner, and Delegate Scott and Delegate Kilgore were there to kind of have a back and forth, and they said that Mr. Kilgore said that basically people were asking him why in the world he was carrying the anti-Semitism bill. Since there were so few Jewish people in his district, and he said, well, after all, Israel comes from Southwest Virginia. So.
Did anybody laugh?
Yeah,
I did not help him with
Okay. With that as your introduction,
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 1779. This bill creates a grant fund that would be overseen by SHEV that would make awards to higher ed institutions that will develop programs that lead to a degree or credential that supports the nuclear power industry, whether it be nuclear engineering, nuclear welding, and probably other things which I may not even completely understand myself. But by putting this fund in place, it clears the way for schools, higher education institutions to begin the process of developing these programs. I don't think these are programs that are going to be developed overnight. But I think as this rapidly emerging industry continues to grow in Virginia and in other parts of the country, that this will help us lay the groundwork and hopefully help lift all the regions in Virginia, whether direct or indirect. And that's pretty much the bill in a nutshell, Madam Chair.
okay. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, Madam Chairman, just not a question, but a comment. And Madam Chairman, you already know this, obviously, but the shipyards this is critically important to our shipyards. Whether it's Newport News, Norfolk Naval Shipyard, Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, you name it, all of them need nuclear welders. And there is an extreme shortage because it's very difficult work, it's hot, it's stuffy, but they make a fabulous living. And so we do have a real shortage of these type of people that are really able to accomplish this very difficult task. And so I think this is a great idea.
Those here in support of House Bill 1779? Anyone here in opposition? They're being awfully quiet today. Yeah.
I'll make a motion or recommendation to report.
I would second that.
Was that your motion, Senator Pillion?
Madam Chair, that was.
Okay. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that House Bill 1779 be recommended for reporting. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Yes, and Chapson, aye. Okay. So, you don't have to show up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that.
Okay, that's that. Okay, that does it for us today.